Is Canada quietly cutting ties with the U.S.? Nuclear submarines, radar systems, and a chilling message from Ottawa: $60 billion in submarines, $6 billion in radar. A $19 billion F-35 deal on the edge of collapse. One of America's closest allies is quietly stepping out of its shadow. They're submarines not made in USA. Earlier this month, the French nuclear-powered submarine FS Tourville docked in Halifax, Nova Scotia, just 300 miles from the U.S. border. But this wasn't a diplomatic visit. It was a live demonstration of France's latest naval technology for Canadian defense officials. Canada is now preparing to replace its aging submarine fleet in a modernization plan worth $60 billion Canadian dollars, roughly 42 billion USD. They plan to acquire between 6 and 12 nuclear-powered submarines, specifically for long-duration operations in the Arctic, where competition for control is intensifying. In the past, major arms deals like this almost always went to American companies. This time, France is leading. Backed by its Barracuda-class submarine program and a strengthening defense partnership with Ottawa, long-range radar, choosing Australia over the U.S. Shortly after, Canada announced a major investment, $6 billion Canadian dollars, into the JORN radar system, developed in Australia. JORN is an over-the-horizon radar capable of detecting aircraft and ships up to 3,000 kilometers away by bouncing radio waves off the ionosphere, covering the vast Arctic region in real time. What's striking is this. Canada bypassed all the U.S. defense giants. No Lockheed Martin, no Raytheon, no Northrop Grumman. Why? Because Canada no longer trusts American defense consistency. The Arctic is too critical to leave in the hands of uncertain alliances. Canada wants sovereign surveillance, free of foreign pressure, even from its southern neighbor. F-35 deal under review. Then came the bombshell. Canada is now reconsidering its $19 billion US contract to buy 88 F-35 fighter jets from the U.S. The agreement was signed in 2023, and Canada has only paid for the first 16 units so far. But now, the government is reviewing the entire deal and may switch suppliers. Defense Minister Bill Blair called it a necessary strategic decision to protect Canadian sovereignty. But analysts are calling it what it really is. The strongest warning Canada has sent to the Pentagon in over 30 years. NATO allies are watching, and this shift isn't isolated. Just weeks ago, Portugal canceled its own F-35 procurement, citing unpredictable U.S. foreign policy as a key risk for NATO unity. Portuguese Defense Minister Nuno Melo made it clear, we must rethink our reliance on a partner whose positions change too quickly. And that's the heart of the issue. Can a unified defense system survive when its central pillar becomes volatile and erratic? A post-NORAD era? For decades, NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, was a symbol of unshakable trust between Canada and the U.S. But behind closed doors, Ottawa is quietly building alternative systems, from Australian radar to French submarines, and more European tech contracts. Canada is not just diversifying suppliers, it's restructuring its entire defense ecosystem, piece by piece. This is not just procurement, it's a strategic realignment of historic proportions. Stay tuned to see how Europe, Asia, and Washington respond next. Trump wants Greenland, but does he know that this strategy is pushing the world into a trade war? And this could cost you when buying a car. Tensions are rising, and the ripple effects might make things more expensive for everyday consumers. We need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time. Trump is making waves again by reproposing the idea of buying Greenland. With its rich resources and strategic location, he believes it's a steal for U.S. national security. But this story is not as simple as he thinks. Greenland and Denmark have responded strongly. Dear President Trump, listen very carefully. Greenland has been part of the Danish kingdom for 800 years. It's an integrated part of our country. It is not for sale, and it's not just Greenland. Europe, especially Germany and France, have sided with Denmark and strongly opposed the idea. This is not just a territorial dispute, but a struggle over sovereignty and the right to self-determination. So, how does this affect you? It's the US-EU trade war. Trump has bluntly accused the EU of unfair trade practices, claiming that millions of European cars flood US roads, while American cars face numerous barriers to entering the European market. With this move, Trump is not only pushing for higher tariffs on European cars, but also threatening major car manufacturers like Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes, forcing them to reconsider their expansion plans in the U.S. But Europe is not backing down easily. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, has declared that the EU will retaliate strongly if tariffs are imposed. German and French leaders, including Chancellor Olaf Scholz and President Emmanuel Macron, have stated that they cannot accept such a trade imbalance. If a tariff war occurs, you might end up paying more when buying a car. Car prices will rise, and if you're looking to buy a Tesla electric car, this will directly impact you. The crisis doesn't stop at the trade war. Tesla, the leader in the electric vehicle industry, is now facing a new storm. Denmark, once one of Tesla's key markets in Europe, has made Musk headache as the country's pension funds collectively pull out of Tesla. The reason? Tesla's stance against unions and its refusal to sign collective bargaining agreements with workers. Funds like Pension Denmark and Academic Pension, with billions of dollars in assets, have lost patience with Tesla and decided to remove the company from their investment portfolios. This not only affects Tesla's image, but also fuels growing public dissatisfaction with the company's labor policies. On top of that, strikes across Northern Europe, especially in Denmark, have blocked Tesla vehicles, escalating tensions between Tesla and labor unions in Europe. And so, we are faced with an undeniable truth. Tesla, once a symbol of innovation, is now facing a crisis. In Germany, the largest electric car market in Europe, Tesla's sales dropped by 76% in just February 2025. Meanwhile, the electric vehicle market as a whole saw a 30% growth. What's the reason? Tesla is losing the consumer trust, and this is not because their cars are bad, but because of labor issues and the increasing competition from European car manufacturers. Especially, German consumers, a nation known for their love of brands like Mercedes and BMW, are now turning their backs on Tesla. A recent survey shows that up to 94% of Germans no longer want to buy a Tesla. This proves that the rise of European electric car makers like Volkswagen and Renault is slowly reclaiming Tesla's market share. And it's not just that. Elon Musk's increasing involvement in European politics, especially his support for the far-right AfD party in Germany, is further eroding Tesla's public trust. Frankly, too much of a focus on past guilt, and we need to move beyond that. Children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents. So, what do you think? Are you willing to pay more for a Tesla car in the future? But don't rush to conclusions, because the next developments will be even more surprising. Last February, 500,000 Canadians stopped crossing the U.S. border. Tourism numbers have plummeted, hitting the lowest point since the 2022 pandemic. And it doesn't stop there. American goods are now facing a massive boycott in Canada. So, what's really happening? And more importantly, is this the sign of a major shift? This story might just surprise you. Donald Trump and Canadian politics. What's happening beyond trade and military